So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Kristian to talk to you about Cbus and what it's doing for the members and for the industry. Thank you so much, Kristian.
Thank you, Danita. First of all, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land of which we stand, the Ngunnawal people, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So I'm very pleased to be here speaking with you at your annual event in Canberra, where it's really evident that the work that you do in advocating for your own members and working very effectively in Parliament. I would like to reiterate that the MBA is a very valued stakeholder of Cbus. Cbus was created from the industry that we work in and that you represent. And as our chair, Wayne Swan, said last night and pointed out very rightly, this organisation, the MBA, has been with Cbus right from the beginning, almost 40 years. And to this day, the MBA continues to play an absolutely critical role in the success of the Cbus Fund, not only in our capacity to advocate and understand our membership, but being really competitive in a highly competitive superannuation space. As Danita mentioned, I have been with the fund for over 11 years. Most of that time has been as CIO, but since June this year, I have proudly taken on the role as CEO. And I must say that certainly I have seen a lot of change over that period. When I first started at the fund, it had about $23 billion in funds under management, savings, retirement savings for our members. And just last week we ticked over 90 billion, which is a very significant milestone. I could claim that was all my work in terms of the returns, but that would be hardly representative of the truth. In fact, the growth of the fund and the success of the fund is really down to many factors. Not of least is the commitment that our stakeholders, including the MBA, have in making the fund the success that it is today. And although much has changed over this time, what we can say is that within the field of sort of broader superannuation, Cbus remains firmly committed to the industry that we represent, the industry that you represent. And that commitment also means that we believe that we can serve you and members better than the rest. And that's something I'm really proud of. And just on that, there is quite a lot to be proud of. Most importantly, according to Super Ratings, the returns of our MySuper option has placed us in the top 5 performing funds over 10 years as of the end of last year. And ultimately, we are here to grow the savings of our members, and I think that's a really important achievement. Also, last calendar year, we did achieve a positive return of 9.49% in our Growth MySuper option, which is the default option that most of our members are in. And this was a very positive result considering our target is CPI plus 3.25%. And whilst in fact our compliance team requires me to say that past performance is not necessarily a reliable indicator of future performance, this result does take our 10-year return average to 7.6% per annum to the end of last year. And since inception, almost 40 years, a return of 8.86% per annum, which is an incredibly strong outcome for our members over many decades. And it does reflect the robustness of the investment approach that we take, but also, just as importantly, the insights that we derive from our various sponsoring organisations that are integrated into some of that activity, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. The calendar year results are also a very good outcome for members in the context of what we've been hearing. So volatility in financial markets. We also are proud of our large weight in property. It has been a strong driver of success over the long term, but certainly the property market from an investment point of view, not just in a construction point of view, but an investment point of view, has seen some challenges over most recent times. The Cbus investment team has navigated these difficult market conditions, which includes rising interest rates, high inflation, pressures on the commercial property market in particular, and even global conflicts that create sort of challenges and uncertainty in the investing environment. However, it is a testament to our robust and diversified investment strategy that has meant that we're still able to deliver very strong returns in these circumstances. So whilst last calendar year was quite strong, we do see some challenges ahead for 2024. We note that most developed market central banks are reaching or have reached the peak of their tightening cycle. Labour markets still remain tight. We've talked about this here, and we're seeing it on the ground as well as we look at investments. Wages growth remains robust, and inflation is still higher than ultimately long-term desired. So although we're moving in the right direction, there's still some way to go. The way that we've been sort of seeing this is that our investment team does believe that interest rates will remain longer than what the market's pricing in. And the problem with that is if the market is expecting interest rates to fall earlier and they price that in, then when they don't, that can create some headwinds to returns. In response to those factors, Cbus has positioned its portfolio slightly defensively, although we do note that defensive posture was relatively small, so that's one of the reasons why we were still able to participate in those strong returns last year. As Cbus has grown, we've also been increasingly playing a bigger role in supporting our economy through our investments. It's something we're very proud of. Just to give you sort of a bit of an understanding around that, around $2 billion is invested across top 20 manufacturers in Australia. 6 of those top 20 manufacturers sit in our top 50 holdings in the entire portfolio by size of investments. So they include names like CSL, Aristocrat, Ampol, Amcor, and Orica, who has been in the news, and BlueScope Steel. We also invest across other areas across Australia, which includes some of the big names like BHP, Woodside, Transurban and Santos. So you can sort of get a sense of, beyond the property portfolio, some of the other areas that we support in Australia. And of note, these companies and the investments that we are a part of employ just hundreds of thousands of average Australians. I spoke earlier about our commitment and attachment to the industry in which our members work. This not only means that we look at the needs of employers and members in the sector and tailor our services and products to them and you. It also means that we back the industry that they come from with our investments. And certainly relative to others, if you look at our commitment and our investment into property, for instance, we have a 12% allocation in property, and a substantial amount of that is in Australian property, and that contrasts quite significantly with many others who have a much lower allocation and a significantly greater allocation overseas. So one of the things and one of the features around our allocation of property is that it includes new property developments across the office, industrial, retail and residential sectors. The majority of that property development, we're proud to have our own 100% owned subsidiary Cbus property driving that development. Just if you're not aware, Cbus property over its time has created over 100,000 jobs in the property and construction industry since its inception in 2006. And we are continuing to invest in new developments going forward. One of the benefits of that is that not only do those investments and developments benefit our members through very strong returns, but they also support the industry, as I mentioned before. And to give you a sense, since as at 30 September last year, Cbus property has achieved a commendable return of 10.65% per annum over the last 10 years, so actually higher than the broader portfolio, which is remarkable, and that includes also more recent times when the property sector has been a bit more challenged. We also use other fund managers to gain exposure to property into some of the areas where we don't have the same expertise, and they include fund managers like ISPT and Dexus. So as I mentioned, over the short term, the performance of our property portfolio has been impacted by factors like rising interest rates and the ongoing dynamic of working from home. However, looking forward, with the prospect of interest rate rises stabilising and then over time seeing a decline, and also with slowly but surely increasing participation back into the workplace, into the office, we do see that the recent underperformance in the property sector for those investors who have money to deploy is likely to create good buying opportunities for the next business cycle. In fact, quite often, they end up being the best times to be investing, and so our commitment to this sector, remains not only because of our connection with you, but also because we think it makes good financial sense. Just so you understand, Cbus property is well diversified. It has exposure across Australia. And also note that the particular office exposure that we have is in the very premium office space, and so that is less impacted. It still is impacted, but it's less impacted by these trends that we're talking about. And we continue to see tenants seeking office space with strong quality, sustainability credentials, including justifying us continuing to commit to new developments. We've also seen the trend in staff from working from home post-COVID reversing. And certainly, this was supported by the Fair Work Commission, which found that employers being in the office can, and in my personal experience, I do definitely believe, benefits productivity and collaboration. I think it's fair to say that when you had a workforce that knew each other, you could do things remotely, but as time goes by, you lose that connection. And certainly in our experience, we've got about 60% of our workforce that have joined in the last 2 years. So it's really important having the opportunity for people to come face to face. And it's something that we support. And certainly it's also critical to our industry. Certainly also we were talking about housing. And we continue to be very strongly involved in residential development with Cbus property. So last year we've seen a range of property either completed or committed to in a number of the major cities in Sydney, Brisbane and Melbourne. So some of these include Newmarket and Randwick. We finished Langston Epping, which was a property that we committed to, and it was a very difficult decision. We committed to having that start during COVID. And again, this is a really good example of us looking at the space, looking ahead and saying, well, actually when others aren't playing, this is where we should be. And so that also means that when capital's not around, and you're finding it hard to get projects off the ground, we're more likely to see opportunity. We also, so we finished that project just recently. We finished a project in Melbourne, Spring Street. We've also completed a project in Queen Street in Brisbane. Have just got development approval for another project in Queensland. We've just bought another project in St Kilda, and we've got some planning approvals under the new regime that the New South Wales government has put up to try and fast track planning approvals, but also exploring a mix of more affordable housing in there. So we're engaging in that opportunity as well. That's the Cbus property side, but we also participate through other parts of the way we invest, in particular around debt. So since we commenced our internal managed debt strategy in 2019, we've seen debt-funded construction of around 1,600 residential dwellings in the housing sector. And again, some of that was in particular committed during COVID, at a time when the banks weren't lending. Even though we had properties that were pre-sold, ready to go, the finance was drying up, and so we were able to step in, and we're very proud of that role that we're able to play, because we can create returns but also support the industry at the same time. We talk also a little bit about social and affordable housing. We know this is a really critical issue, and it is a place that we can play in selectively whilst getting returns that are risk adjusted in the right way. So clearly we can't play in the area where there's returns that don't meet the hurdle of risk against other opportunities, but there are some that we have been involved in, we continue to be involved in. So one of those initiatives is going back to the old NIFIC and now Housing Australia's bond issuance. We're a very, very early institution engaged, and we helped shape the program using our insight as to what we think we could definitely back, but also drawing on the experiences with the bond aggregator model over in the UK. And I'm very proud to say that we've got about 160 million out of the $2.6 billion of bonds that are issued. We would have more, except it's so well sought after that we get an outsized allocation because of that participation. But that's a very successful program. You also mentioned about the first round, also the Housing Australia Future Fund. Again, we do see that there's an opportunity to supplement that program in an intelligent way with private capital. We think that the opportunity is, again, probably bigger than we can individually deploy. So we have been using our experience and expertise working with industry funds management and other super funds to design a product that can sort of turbocharge that program. So there are a range of benefits, clearly, that arise from these investments. Again, I think it's nice to know that you're able to support new home developments for vulnerable people. It's also nice to know that you can support the economy through job creation, support our own industry. And also we are able to meet our primary obligations to deliver strong risk-adjusted returns for our members. But this is a really good example where we're actually drawing on not just the expertise that we've built within the fund, but the insights from our sponsoring organisations to do far more than what other superannuation funds have been able to achieve in this space. As I mentioned earlier, this is a landmark year for us, celebrating our 40th anniversary, and certainly we'll be asking you to be involved as part of celebrating that fact. When we reach significant milestones, we do tend to reflect on all that's happened on the journey to get here. It's fair to say that Cbus, Super, or its predecessor, was a front runner in the industry of superannuation in the landscape. What it was able to demonstrate was that we were able to solve the problem of having superannuation covering our industry, despite the fact that the industry is quite complicated. We've got people that move from different jobs and have can often have a very disconnected work life. So solving that problem in our industry meant that it was a template that others could see could be rolled out across the board. So we fast forward 40 years later, and certainly, I'm very proud of the fact that working people in the building and construction industry now own through their hard-earned retirement savings a strategic share in the economy and the wealth that is created. So I might just finish off here, because I'm sure there's probably going to be other questions. I know I've had the pleasure of sort of talking to you individually. There's lots of opportunity. I will reflect on the fact that I think both sides of politics recognise that we don't have an unlimited public budget. Unlike the US, there is a limitation as to how we can continue to raise money to spend, and so we do need to find ways at which we can optimise outcomes. And I do believe that superannuation as a long-term patient provider of capital can be part of that solution to the benefit of the whole economy, but also for the members that we represent. So thank you.